We are live, on air. Very good. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Google Hangout. Today we are talking with John Boyer from Virginia Tech. Wave, John.
Hi, everyone.
And with him is the very knowledgeable woman who makes everything happen for John, and that is Katie. Katie, can I get you to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Katie Pritchard. I'm John's technical assistant in geography.
Excellent. And we got Ryan.
Yes, I am here.
And I am still hearing that echo that we were hearing before.
Oh, crap.
This is not our first time doing this with John, and it gets more entertaining every time. This is going to be fun.
You'll eventually learn your lesson, but I can't help you with no echo. We're all fine here, so we don't have the cool headphones like you got, but we'll press on.
There you go.
In non-80s style.
John, can I get you to sort of introduce yourself and more about tell us who you are, what you teach, and why we would bother having you on our Hangout?
I can't figure out why you would bother having me on your Hangout, but my name is John Boyer, and I teach here in the Department of Geography at Virginia Tech, home of the Fighting Hokies here in Virginia, USA. And I've been teaching for the better part of 2 decades now, and because of growing demand for the classes I teach, one's called World Regions, the other one's Geography of Wine, we have been experimenting for 5 to 6 years on making super large classes just to fulfill the demand. And the quick lineage is like 15 or 18 years ago when I started teaching, it was all conventional, back in the Stone Age, just taught in the classroom to 30 or 40 or 50 students. Then the demand grew, and we bumped up to the biggest class on campus, which holds 550. And then the demand kept growing till we had capacity at 550 and another 3,000 people trying to get in the class. So we bumped it to what's not even a classroom. It's basically a concert hall here on campus that holds 3,000. And that was 6 years ago. Katie, does that sound right? And we did it live. But that's the time that I brought Katie on board, or I should say she imposed herself on me and said, hey, if you're going to teach that many people, you need some communication devices to make it more engaging and have people feel like they're a part of something. And I, in all my wisdom, said, sure, you should do that. So that's when we started experimenting with things like Twitter as an assignment and hashtagging and different communication devices to get people engaged in the assignments, but also push out material to them. Again, this was all still 6 years ago when we were doing a live lecture to 3,000, but then dabbling with how do we keep people feeling like they're part of the game. So we would do in-class polling and crazy things like that. But what we found in the last 5 to 6 years is we're continuing to evolve to the point that we're moving more and more online. And the class demand has not diminished, so in fall of last semester we taught it to 2,500 people, and we have 1,700 people this semester. Does that sound right? And I teach the wine class in spring as well, and we've got 1,000 people in this course. So simply from a logistics standpoint, we started to move more online for ease of access, to be flexible for people's schedules. But honestly, we're going to continue down this road because I believe in my heart of hearts that people are getting more engaged with the material in an online format. Now, students don't necessarily agree with that. If I ask students, hey, would you prefer a good old-fashioned live lecture, the old stodgy white guy standing in front of a wooden podium and talking to you? Or would you prefer that I do this online? Almost everybody says, oh, we prefer the stodgy old white guy in front of the room. Everybody says that's what they want, and then by week 4 of the semester, half of them are not showing up. So we realized this years ago, and it's like, what people say they want and the way they're actually going to consume education is now, there's a rift is opening up. Everybody still thinks the old way is best, but everybody's actually only consuming it the new way. So because of the logistics component of it being difficult to get 3,000 people in a room, combined with what I think is an evolving consumption style for education and all media, but for education as well. That's what's pushed us more to be fully online and trying to do a MOOC as successfully as one could do it, and we think we're getting pretty close. And I'll go ahead and throw out my jaded opinion right now. I don't think many MOOCs out there really do it that good. In fact, none of them that I've really seen so far. So besides this class is awesome, all right? But most of them don't have the retention rates. I think most of them lose the engagement factor as well at a certain point. So what we're always, by the way, I'm not suggesting we have all the answers, but that's what we're working towards. We're experimenting with everything we can to figure out how can we serve as many students as possible, as many students want this material, and how can we do it in a manner that keeps them so engaged that they stay in it to win it from day one to the last day of the semester. How was that for a summary of what we do?
That's great. The reason we wanted you in this time, now last time we for this course when we did it last year, we had you in and you talked sort of in general about how you're using technology in your teaching. Mm-hmm. And this time we wanted to narrow it down because you do so much with video that this week in the class we're looking at podcasts, screencasts, and using YouTube. Mm-hmm. And you don't use YouTube, you use Vimeo, don't you?
No, we use both.
Oh, you use both. Okay. So why both? I guess let me start with that.
And
before you jump into that, can I just interrupt and say that this is the Google Hangout for Week 5, an Introduction to Learning Technologies. We didn't mention what we were actually doing here.
Okay. I think I said it was week, maybe.
I don't know. We just get so excited.
We did.
But anyways, if you're watching, if you have questions, you can submit them on the discussion board within the course or on Twitter at #ILT_USask. So that's ILT_USASK. All right. Sorry for interrupting.
Oh, that's okay. It was my fault. I get too excited, and then suddenly an hour has elapsed, and I'm still ranting and raving. So it's your fault. You people keep inviting me back. I don't know what to tell you. So the question was, why do we use YouTube and Vimeo? And for that, I'll turn to Katie.
So I believe we first started using Vimeo because back in the day, YouTube wouldn't let you go above 15 minutes. And it took us a while to get over that hurdle. Like, for the longest time, they wouldn't let you upload unless you're a very premium account or something was special. And we tried to hit people up to upload videos that were longer, but they wouldn't. At first, they wouldn't let us. So.
And as you can tell, I can't do 15 minutes. So that's out of the question.
So that's why we first went with Vimeo, and I guess we now post in both locations. We post on Vimeo and YouTube, but for our own website, platinumedge.com, we still reference the Vimeo just because it's cleaner. There's not as much stuff when you go to click on it. It's not as heavily overlaid with things that YouTube does, and it's usually just their video encoders are usually a little cleaner than YouTube's are. Their HD version is nicer looking. So that's why we still post to both, but to get more traction, to get more viewers, definitely YouTube is where we get that.
Okay. You also make use of Ustream, though, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you use Ustream for as opposed to the others?
You want me? I can answer that one, even though it's technology. So we use Ustream to do the online office hours, and we have found we've experimented with Google Chat, with Spreecast. Probably, what was that other one we had Cider pay for?
Live stream.
Live stream through Ustream, but we found that the free Ustream service is the best for online office hours because while it's engaging for 5 or 10 people to all have their video feed up like we have right now and toggle back and forth, when you're doing the numbers that we do, it becomes insanity. I mean, you just can't have that many people. Everything's too jumpy. Things are flashing too quickly. The technology, I'm sure, in the very near future will get to a better place where you can where you'll be able to control who gets to pop their video up a little bit better than they have it right now. But since the main point of the online office hours is for me, the instructor, to answer questions, then we just feature me, the instructor, on the video feed, and then people can type in their questions. Now, it's also nice because there's a chat section on the Ustream. And so people can do their own thing, and they do, and Katie actually oversees the active chat while I'm answering questions. I'm answering on video. She will feed me select questions from the chat room if she thinks they're worthy. But other than that, there's a whole discussion board going on simultaneously in the chat room. And then if people want to ask a specific question, they can try to send it through Katie through the chat room, but they can also G-chat me directly, and then it pops up on my screen. And the reason we like that system is that it forces people to, everybody can maintain their anonymity, and people like that. It does encourage, facilitate conversation. So we like the anonymity part, but if to force people to actually write their question out makes them ask a better, succinct question. So that's why we kind of do it that way, as opposed to trying to have 20, 30, or 150 people just trying to pop in. It becomes mayhem very quickly.
Right.
Can I just ask about
Sure.
Ustream? So I've never actually used it or been in a Ustream. You're able to use a free version. Is that what you said? And so basically,
yeah, it's free, but with this caveat, as with everything else, they want to pop up advertising during it, which is, I guess, fine for most of the complete garbage that's on the web. I mean, it's all crap, so who cares to be interrupted with a crappy commercial? But as with all things on the web, there's a fix. So there's something called ad blocker, and so we tell all of our students, well, here's where the office hours is going to be, and then right underneath that, here's this link, put this on your computer, and so it blocks all the ads and it won't pop up and interfere with the video stream.
Also, if you watch it on any device instead of a laptop, if you watch on your phone or your iPad or whatever, it also doesn't have any ads. It has like one quick one, and then it won't have any more. So, yes, and we looked into if Ustream would have an educational license or some way to give us a good deal, and they don't, so it's going to cost thousands of dollars, which we can't afford.
So we just use the free.
awesome.
That makes sense. So, since we're talking about video this week, audio and video, what advantages have you found for video that video offers that might not be available? What benefits come with using video as opposed to, because you're talking about moving stuff online, and a lot of instructors, when they start teaching online, it's text heavy or PowerPoints, but that's not what you do. So first of all, I guess, what's the advantage of using the methods for video that you use as opposed to just putting the content up for them to view?
Well, from a honest and a personal and ideological standpoint, I find the idea that an instructor who's paid a salary, and I don't care if this is K through 12 or up here in the ivory tower, for somebody to be paid a salary who cut and pastes stuff and dumps it onto a site and says that's your course, I find it offensive, lazy, and I couldn't imagine why people would pay anyone to do that. And if they do it right now, they won't be doing it for long, because good content is going to win in the end, as it always does. And people that teach every class the best, well, their classes are going to get out there. I can't imagine how it's an effective teaching style to say, well, I'm going to go online, so here, read all this. I mean, that's barely even is it a class? I mean, that's like a reading assignment. So I'm ideologically opposed to just dumping stuff on the web and saying, here, do this course yourself, especially at college. It's unacceptable. And I believe the use of video is still, and maybe forever, going to be the most engaging way we can present information online, because it makes us look like humans, because we are humans and we like looking at each other when we're talking to each other, which is why, you know, people standing in front of a room has persisted for 500 years. We all come together to watch this person who has more knowledge or better knowledge or can express that knowledge better than us in front of the room, and they're going to give us that knowledge. And, you know, I know we're really advanced. We have all these great technologies now, but storytelling is still storytelling, and probably the reason that people have a favorite teacher or a favorite show or a favorite something is because they looked at a human face and been engaged by that storyteller and the way that they've told that story, and I think it's very powerful. I don't even know how you measure this quality, if it is indeed a quality, but the art of presenting information, i.e. storytelling, is an extremely powerful tool to get people engaged. And it's why, again, I think most students say, hey, I still want the old-fashioned way of Boyer lecturing live. Because it's powerful. It's good. We like it. It's the way we transmitted information 10,000 years ago to each other. And I think it's going to keep going for another 10,000 years versus just here, read this book. So video to me has this this power that's the next best thing to live, and I'm not sure it's going to be superseded by anything else in the very near future. That's just me.
I say also for us, video is really nice because we can, as geography, you can throw in maps, you can throw in pictures of leaders, you can add all those extra graphics to help with the learning. What students are watching.
Yeah, maybe that's why we went to it so quickly without really having to think about it. Is, you know, geography is presenting spatial information, and but spatial is very visual. But the last thing I'll say about, you know, seeing a human face is that think about all the expressions that go into everything, and even my movements and what all is being expressed, but I'm not, you know, but with very few words and more gestures and inclination of my face and the way that I'm, inclination or tone of my voice and what my face is telling you. That's a whole bunch of information that cannot be expressed ever in a text format. I mean, I guess they'll think of something about 500 years from now, but why? Why would you do that when we can just do this?
Yeah. So we were just talking about the positives, and there are obviously clear positives to using video, but where do you see weakness in it?
I think accessibility, for sure. You know, and the time it takes to produce it. Audio, you can record it and have a small file that you can send out without much bandwidth being used. Where video, it definitely requires, especially Ustream, we found that you know, we'll have to reduce the bandwidth signal that we send out because some students it'll be too choppy for them, or it lags too much, that they need to have a high-speed internet connection to be able to access it.
Right. Where are most students in your course?
Most of them are here in Blacksburg.
Okay. So, and you have, I mean, that's local, and you still have students with some technical issues when it comes for accessibility. So we have students, not necessarily in this course, but we have students at the university and throughout Canada that might be in the far north, or they might be in rural areas that have less access. So that's a very real concern that we have to take into consideration when it comes to heavy media.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I still would stand by, I don't know, stand by, I'm not defending the position. I just believe it's the future. So, as with anything with technologies, you know, 5 years ago or 500 years ago or 5,000 years ago, yeah, it takes some getting used to, and as it continues to advance, it becomes easier and more accessible. Hell, the mere fact that we're doing this right this second, us talking on a computer thousands of miles away from each other, this was a dream 20 years ago. And yeah, it's a little choppy, it's a little crazy, but for God's sakes, this is crazy. Can you imagine people 100 years ago even being able to imagine that this was possible? And it's just going to me, we're still maybe only halfway through the evolution, you know, another 5 or 10 years, and this stuff's going to be so slick, you'll be able to download it on your wristwatch and watch, you know, 16 hours of video, I think.
Yeah. Ryan, do you have any questions you want to throw in?
Well, I'm just wondering, when you talk about your video, you talk a lot about your expressions and things like that and what that brings to it. So how do you kind of make that balance? Because a lot of people put up videos and they won't show their face in it, or they'll just have slides and images and things like that. You kind of have a mix of both. So how do you kind of make that mix? How do you make those decisions?
Well, like I said, to me it's the most natural evolution, and I find it a little bizarre that people do it any other way, which means that for 500 years, I always say 500 years, Western educational tradition. So for 500 years, we've gone into a room and watched the person up front. And now we're moving to, again, this more digital age that we're all recognize. And then some people want to say, okay, well, we've done this for 500 years, so we're going to stop all that and just write it all down. I'm looking, and I'm like, that's an unnatural evolution. So to me, it's much more, and I think this is how we're getting more students engaged and liking, if not loving, the online format, is because it's, again, it's the next best thing. It's the next step. It's pretty much live, but it's 2D instead of 3D. But 3D is coming, of course. That's the next thing we're going to start working on. And I actually think video is beneficial. You asked us about some of the downsides of video. Yeah, it's maybe hard to upload in different places. But one of the great powers of video, say versus live lecture or versus a just a written course where it's all here, go read this stuff, is that video, unlike a live lecture, you can rewind anytime you want, and you can watch it anytime you want, and you can watch it 10 times if you want. And to me, that's not even just kind of the next step of evolution. I think it's awesome. I think it's extremely powerful. I think it's 10 steps ahead in the evolution that people, it makes the material so much more flexible and accessible to virtually anyone. So yes, there's problems with people who have a bad internet connection or a slow one. Okay, that's one negative. But then think of all the positives of, well, I was sick, I couldn't make it to class. It doesn't matter, it's recorded. I don't take very good notes. It doesn't matter, it's recorded. I'm blind. Doesn't matter, it's recorded. You can listen. We actually have our first blind student this semester, and she is loving it. So even though she can't even see the graphics, she's still like, yeah, but I like hearing your voice, and I can tell you get excited. And we're like, okay, good. She's digging it. So if you start to think about all of the problems that you have in regular course lectures, it made a list of them. One by one, they just start to disappear when you have a really good pre-recorded product because it affords the ultimate in flexibility and I believe pretty close to the ultimate in accessibility, except for perhaps download issues.
But to your exact question, because I want to get to that, because I'm more on the point kind of stuff. But usually when we record the video and we go to edit it or add in graphics, so we just had to think about. I think about it as a student, like what would I want? Okay, I'm seeing his face for 20 minutes straight. Am I gonna
too much?
If there's nothing thrown in, like yeah, I can see him for a bit, and I mean I'll flip back and forth, but what is the material that we want to show? And for me as a student, I always could not spell anything, so I'd be taking notes, and I took his class, and I had no idea what he just said. And I was like, okay, and I have some crazy notes I have to go look up later. Because for me, when I'm helping,
she couldn't even spell Canada. Keep going back.
No, just like all the leaders you were talking about and everything, and all these different terms I didn't understand, and they weren't on your PowerPoint. So for me, I think about it as, as a student, what would I want to show? He's talking about this location, I definitely want to see a map. He's talking about this word that I'm like, or just key phrase that I want, he wants students to write down, pop it up on screen, things like that, where I try to think of it as in the student's perspective, what notes should they be taking down, what they want to see, that would help them visualize and understand the concept more.
Yeah, and that's what, to her first point, you don't want to watch somebody just talk for 20 minutes, but amazingly enough, that's what we've done for 500 years is go to a room and watch somebody talk for an hour and a half, and this is why people can't stay awake in lecture halls and why people are starting to skip. And it's not that they have to be entertained, it's just unnatural to literally sit and don't move and watch somebody or something for that long a period of time. So I don't even blame this younger generation, they can't pay attention, everybody has ADD, they're just looking at their devices. I'm not one of those old codgers who wants to blame the technology or blame the young people. I don't think it's natural for anybody to sit around. Unless you're telling one hell of a good story around the campfire, you're not really going to sit there for an hour and a half and listen to really any topic. So we found that, and that's part of my teaching style actually, even doing it live. It's like, no, you have to present, you have to introduce graphics to reinforce principles, to reinforce the knowledge that you're hoping that they get. And even as early as 10 years ago, I started doing a secondary slideshow. So I have 2 slideshows when I do a live lecture. And one is my notes. The students can see. It's basically my outline of names and places and maps that I will pop through. But then I have a secondary slideshow of just a virtual tour of the region or the country that I'm talking about. And that just goes. So I guess maybe some people say, well, isn't that distracting? And what we've found for a decade is no, people enjoy it because it keeps things lively. It's a changing, dynamic that keeps your eyes kind of tied or focused to the front of the room as opposed to just looking at your device or going to sleep. And so we try to translate that into the pre-recorded lectures that we do as well.
Right.
Can I just a question on that? You mentioned the blind student. Have you ever had a deaf student in your courses? Do you have any transcripts?
Oh, many, yeah. Apparently, and I don't know why this is, but apparently lots of deaf people go to college here at Virginia Tech, but not that many blind people, because this is the first blind student that we've ever had, and they have made such a huge fuss over that we have to imagine that they aren't used to it. So when we do live lectures and had deaf students in the past, and we've had deaf students at least, I'd say at least 20 or 30. And I know this because I know all the people who do the signing. We're friends with them all, and they love coming to the course. They always say, oh, anytime there's a deaf student taking your class, we all fight to see who can come do it. You guys can always come hang out. I don't care. So, yeah, in times past, they would actually sit on the stage with me facing the student and sign out the lecture, and usually I make them crack up half the time. So it's always fascinating. But, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I don't know the mix of people who are in this course or will watch this video, but we do. I'm not even one to be politically correct. Let me put that right out front. I don't care a lick about being politically correct. But even I am being very conscious to try to develop materials for online that are accessible to everyone. Now, it's impossible. It's impossible, but it's something that everybody should have in the back of their head. Because, even though I'm not politically correct, most universities and governments are. And so we've already been hit with, oh, you can't put on an online class unless blind people can see it. And you're like, did you just hear what you just said to me? I can't teach a class unless a blind person who can't see can see it. I don't know how to do that. And again, people on my campus have said, oh no, but you have to. That's some law somewhere. It's like an accessibility thing. It's like putting in wheelchair ramps, I guess. You have to be. It has to be accessible, or somebody can shut you down. Now, whether someone will really do that, I don't know. And again, I'm not politically correct, so I don't care. So they can sue whoever they want to sue, me included. Not interested. Checks in the mail. I don't care. But I actually do really care about students. And so now when we're creating stuff, I'm thinking, okay, what would be the drawbacks if this was a deaf person trying to listen to this? Okay, let's close captioning, but who pays for that? Or what are we going to do if other blind people want to watch this video? So it does help to not remake your whole course so that it's accessible to the whole world, because that is impossible, but to keep those considerations in mind. How do we produce content that is the most accessible to the most people? I don't know where I was going with that. I don't have answers, but it's made us think a lot about it here as we're ramping up to produce a whole bunch more content. We're being much more conscious of, okay, how do we do this right? Because you don't want to invest a whole bunch of time and then have some hack bureaucrat come and tell you, by the way, you can't use any of that because you didn't meet some law somewhere that says you had to be accessible to, I don't know, somebody from Kazakhstan who can't speak your language. Who knows what the local laws are, but it's good to be conscious of these things.
Right.
So can I just probe a little bit further on that? So do you have somebody do closed captioning in the videos, or do you rely on the kind of the built-in tool in YouTube, or what have you done?
We haven't done anything, but did you have thoughts?
Well, for right now, we had actually a couple of hard of hearing students take the course while we were on semester at sea, which we were kind of given no notice about that. We're unable to get things done in time, but they just used the YouTube closed captioning, which made some really funny screenshots that they sent us because it was so off. And they're like, we got the gist of it, what you're trying to say, but it was funny when we read them sometimes going, no, that's definitely not what he was saying. So we're working on that, and especially we're trying to work with recording video. If you have an idea that a graphic's going in, that you should describe the graphic. Instead of being like, hey, look at this map, you have to say, like, hey, look at this map of this, which you'll see this on, and learning to describe things more in that way.
Yeah, actually, she just summarized in 10 seconds what I was trying to express for the last 5 minutes. Good at it. Which is that, yeah, I'm not suggesting everybody make sure that your content is accessible to blind and deaf people and people in wheelchairs. It's more that if you can take a lot of the mystery out of it if you address things. Hey, there's this graphic. Hey, I'm showing you this picture of Robert Mugabe right now. That's President of Zimbabwe. And it's simple little things like that you just have to be conscious of. That this would make it a lot better for people that can't see or hear. And you know what? It probably helps regular old students as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. John, you've talked a little bit about the different. You do different things with video, and I was wondering if you could explore that a little bit more, because I know that you do the pre-recorded lectures, but you also do these quick videos on, okay, this event has happened. Let me give you an update on this what's going on in Jordan or North Korea or wherever. Can you talk a little bit about the different ways that you're using video for your courses?
Sure. The main one is, like you said, pre-recorded lectures. We try to break those down, into 15 to 20-minute segments, and that would be the thing I would impart with the most passion to new teachers, new instructors, but people who also trying to just change over to maybe an online format. It's really all about the strategizing and planning up front. It's like anything else. The more you plan the flow of your lecture and how you can break it down into consumable pieces, the better off it's going to be for everybody. It's easier for you to produce it. It's easier for students to consume it. It's easier for people to reference. Oh, it's this piece up here, instead of trying to say, oh, remember when you lectured 3 weeks ago about this for 2 hours? Remember that part? And of course nobody remembers that. So the main video stuff is the lectures, 15 to 20-minute segments, broken out in a whole storyline per topic. And those are given out on a weekly basis, roughly to replace real lecture. It's one of the reasons why we did it. We said, okay, well, standard lecture here, I don't know how it is in Canada, but you lecture about 2.5 hours a week. Either you do 50 minutes 3 times a week, or an hour and a quarter twice a week, or whatever it is. About 2 to 2.5 hours of lecture. So we said, okay, well, we're going to use the video lecture stuff to replace that. So it's essentially just like a regular course, except it's online. You can watch it whenever you want to. We put those up on a weekly basis and say, watch this 2.5 hours of video, and then you'll go take a quiz on each subsection.
And these lecture videos are meant to be permanent, but at least hopefully 4 to 5 years, these are permanent pieces that are not changing. They're covering concepts and topics, not the current events things.
Right. So to supplement and be able to address changing events, that is current events is what we call it, we invented something just a couple years ago called flash quizzes. And they are exactly what they perhaps sound like, which is based on the flash mob idea that was really a sensation years ago. Remember when that was a sensation? That was so silly. Flash mob, flash party, flash this. So I co-opted the phrase and basically called it a flash quiz, and it's in essence a pop quiz, like we used to do back in school, usually as a punitive measure back in the day, but I try to put a more positive spin on it and say these are shorter videos. Well, actually some of them may be just as long, 15 or 20 or 25 minutes, but they're on something topical, and I don't know what they're going to be because I don't know what's going to happen next week that I may talk about. So, for instance, the first series of flash quizzes I did this semester was on the death of the King of Saudi Arabia and how it's going to affect policies and politics in the Middle East. I mean, he just died, so I couldn't do it in advance. So I did it after he died and made a 3-part series out of it because people kept asking me more questions. Every time I made a piece, somebody asked me something else. I'm like, okay, I'll do 3 pieces. And then those pop up, and I say, okay, well, I just did this video, and it's accessible right now, and by 6 p.m. tomorrow there'll be a quiz available, and it's only going to be open for an hour, and you only have 1 hour to access the quiz, and you only have 5 minutes to take it once you click start, and good luck. And we actually make the threshold score very high for those, meaning you can't just go click buttons. If you just go click, well, I'm just going to go make points by randomly guessing. you'll fail because you usually have to get 7 or 8 out of 10 correct in order for any score to be recorded. And again, this is stuff we've learned over time through experience. We're seasoned veterans at this. And so when you make things limited time, limited attempts, and then a high threshold score, they're almost uncheatable. And so you actually just encourage people to do the right thing, which is to watch the content and pay attention to it. So that's what the flash quiz component is. I'll add one other piece that you don't even know about because I just invented it last semester, which is we used to, since I've been teaching for 2 decades, I've always used international cinema as a component of the learning. Cinema's a great tool to get people engaged because it's just watching movies, and Americans love watching movies, but I make them watch foreign movies, which is slightly painful, but they end up learning lots of stuff anyway and liking a lot of the films I choose. So we've done that live for all these years. Go into a room, watch the film, talk about it, have a quiz on it. Well, last semester we had so many people, and it was totally online, and I couldn't find a room to hold the people to watch the film, that I said, let's go ahead and move this online too. So now we use film, or use video, to do a pre-recording of information about the film they're getting ready to watch. So I'll go. It's kind of like a flash quiz, but it's not a lecture or a flash quiz. It's just about this film, but it's a pre-recorded lecture video, usually only 15 minutes, where I introduce the film and I give the geographic context and historical outline, maybe the physical geography, and say here's what to watch for, here's what's going on in this film. It's set in this time period. The British were in control of India. I give the quick backstory and tell people things to watch. And then I also do an outro for the film, pre-recorded, and hey, you just watched the film? What'd you think about this? Did you notice this? Did you notice this? And so now we have these bookended videos that go around a film that people watch on their own or in groups, because we're trying to get people to engage and build a community. And we actually give extra points if you watch it in a big group on your own. So we just did this last night, as a matter of fact, or 2 nights ago, with our first film night of the semester. People sent us pictures from all over campus where they got together in common rooms and watched the film and chatted it up and talked it over, and then went and took a quiz on it. So it's a kind of a blending of a mini lecture with a flash quiz bookended around a film. So you watch the intro, then you go watch the film, then you watch the outro, and then you got a full learning experience based on some international cinema.
I just will say one thing real quick too, is that the videos are different production values. So like our lecture videos, that's kind of more studio, black background, professional camera looking videos, more permanent in that line. And then our flash quizzes are more, the professor's at his desk, he just read this story and he's going to record it real quick on his computer, kind of a more casual, you know, here's where I am and I'm so passionate about this, I got to get it on tape now and get it uploaded. So they have different production feels too.
We actually had a question come in from somebody who's in the course. Tim asked, he said, flash quizzes, developing the videos on current events, so not having much lead time. How long does it take you to produce one of these 15 to 25-minute mini lectures?
I'm sorry, is Tim referring to the flash quizzes?
Yeah, to creating those quick videos about this event just happened. How long does it take you to make those videos?
And I would say the exact amount of time that you would spend if you're going to talk about it in class. So it depends on the topic, and of course this is what I do for a living. Just like everybody who teaches, they teach certain subject matter that they know very well. So I know current events, and I follow international news, and I have a good basis of what's going on. So when an event happens, I've always I'm just picking my own brain in front of a camera, which is better than picking your own nose in front of a camera. So basically, I know the types of questions that students would ask about King Abdullah dying, and I just kind of be like, okay, here's the event that just happened. Here's maybe some details, and again, I read a few news articles, maybe a half dozen, try to get a sense of what analysts and other people are thinking about this particular event. And then I just incorporate my own knowledge and experience, and knowing what students would ask and knowing what students know at that point in the course, I say, oh yes, okay. Remember we talked about this in Middle East politics, and I already talked about how the Arabs and the Persians are the big power players who don't like each other. So, given what I know you've already learned in this course, and now let's talk about the current event, I can sit here and just chat to you for 15, 20, 25 minutes. So I would say my prep time is, I don't know, a couple hours, but it could be 5 minutes. I mean, I know enough about the Greek debt bailout now, and I know enough to kill an elephant's memory with that nonsense. So I can sit here and spout to you without any background notes for an hour about that particular issue. Others might take me a little bit more research, but again, it's just kind of the same type of prep you would do before you go into a classroom with some new information.
And then we use, right now we're using Final Cut Pro X on the desktop computer we're on right now. So he'll just hit record and then record it. And usually while he's researching, he'll find images that he wants to throw in, have a folder of those ready to go. Then when he's finished recording, stick the images in and export straight to YouTube. And that takes about, it's a 15 or 20 minutes of recording and then 45 minutes to an hour of throwing in the images and exporting it.
And, you know, while I'm sitting here exporting, I'm still at my computer. I mean, everything we just talked about, I do from this exact chair. So I'll sit here, read the news, maybe pluck out some images I like, click open the program, press record, talk for a while, stop, edit, export, and while I'm checking my email. So, you know, it's like anything else. Once you do it enough, it's second nature. It doesn't take any time. Having said that, yes, it's when you start anything for the first time, it's clunky and it takes you twice as long as it should. But I mean, what does that not apply to in life? So if Tim's asking, is this something that you're just really good with AV stuff and really good with technology, and so it's easy for you? No, I'm actually an idiot. She has to show me how to use all this stuff. But I've tinkered with it enough now that I'm like, oh, okay, you know, there's enough programs out there with enough simplicity that anybody can do this. And that's not an exaggeration. Anybody can do it. It's just a matter of a little bit of practice.
Mm-hmm. We had another question. This one was from DMJ on the discussion forum, and he asked, is there a point when teachers become overwhelmed with so many options regarding technology tools? What's the best way to introduce these tools to seasoned teachers and educators that have what he refers to as techno-terror?
I might need a minute to absorb that term. That is so awesome. The 21st century Luddite is techno-terror. I love that. Yeah, you want to tackle that one?
Yeah.
Or start tackling that one?
I would just try to maybe give them one or two at a time and just really try to think about, maybe ask them what they're missing or how they want to connect or what subject it's on. You know, there's so many different things. If it's a larger class, like online office hours, if you want to introduce one tool that for us has really made a difference to connect with the students more, that's one of them. And for me, you don't have to go the extremely do it. Like, that's kind of one of my steps is, like, if you just want to have, like, your email or, like, your chat, just like if you have your course management system has a chat in it, just be there at the chat. I'm going to be there at this hour, Monday, this time. Just maybe start slowly, that you don't have to go overboard, record your own videos, have this whole thing going crazy and everything. Just, like, take one step, because I feel like if you introduce, here are these crazy 10 new tools that you can use, they're like, too many, I'm out, like, it's too much. But if you if you're in, like, an educational center trying to have them reach out in one way, try to listen to what their issues are and try to find a tool that they could use instead of having to give them 10 of them at once, would be my suggestion.
Right.
And I actually am a Luddite, so if things have too many bells and whistles, I'm not interested. I'm not learning. I'm an old dog. I'm not learning that. I mean, I'm lucky. I can make her do it, or she likes to do it, so she'll help me. But I would say to anyone who's not lucky enough to have an assistant, listen to the students. I think a lot more of that has to start happening too, and I mean listen to them in terms of technology. If you got a room full of 30 kids, or whether it's K through 12 or college, and you say, hey kids, you all on Twitter? How about if I start twittering? And none of them use Twitter, then it doesn't matter if you embrace that technology, does it? Because none of them are doing it. And I've always been a big fan. That's how Katie actually got on board as my technical assistant, is I would just ask students, so what's the new hot way to communicate? What would you guys like to see more in this class? How can I get through better to you in terms of communication of just pertinent stuff about the course? And it's almost always come from students who have said, oh, no, I do this now, or most of us do this. And I'm like, okay, if most of you do that, let me look into that. That's where I would start if I was a teacher anywhere. And it's because, you know, why be the best speaker of Italian if you're going to teach in a Chinese school? It doesn't make any sense to go out and embrace a bunch of stuff before you figure out how the people in your audience are actually speaking to each other and how they're learning.
Right.
And maybe that sounds just, I don't know, provincial or assuming, but things are changing so fast with technology and education. Why waste time asking the people at the top? They're the last to know what's going on anymore. Ask the people at the bottom of this chain, that is the consumers. They're the first to know what's going on. I don't mean to make fun of bureaucrats and old people, but yeah, I mean, we all admit things are changing really, really, really fast. So play to your audience, I guess, is my base recommendation. And choose one thing. Like, I'm glad you brought that up because people see what we do, and I guess people get impressed. They should be impressed by her, not by me. But people see what we do, and they're just like, holy crap. I don't have an assistant. I don't know how to record video. I don't know how to do this technology. So therefore, those people are just out of my league. Let me assure you, this is where we're at after 6 or 7 years. And 6 or 7 years of adopting technologies and experimenting and learning, and after 20 years of teaching this material. So this crap doesn't happen overnight. You got to get into it piecemeal.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to fail, because obviously we're not talking about the failures we've had. These are things that have worked for us. We've had stuff that have totally bombed, and we're like, okay, learn from that. Don't use that again.
Yeah, not doing that again. Boy, we screwed the pooch on that one.
Yeah,
crap.
Don't adopt a technology, and then it goes out of business 6 months later. It's like, all right, well, I'm not going to use that one. Got it.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I totally understand why people would not want to embrace technology because the damn stuff cycles so rapidly. That's why I never want to. Me and her have actually had arguments. She gets mad at me all the time because even she'll be like, well, okay, everybody's using Snapchat now, and so you need to learn Snapchat. And I'm like, hold on, is this shit going to be here 6 months from now? Because I'm old and tired, and I'm not going to learn to speak Chinese if nobody here is going to speak Chinese 6 months from now. So that you do have to balance it out, and you know, this sounds really bad to tell not intro teachers, but people who are thinking about going this direction. But anymore, the more you can do on your own, in terms of your own platform, the better off you are. And again, doing stuff completely on your own is the hardest. It's always easier to adopt other technologies that exist. But we went to Moodle because we are over our university changing systems. And you know what? There's no end in sight for that. All these universities change systems every 3 to 4 years like they're changing their underwear. And that's extremely frustrating for people who are trying to do their job and then every few years have to learn a whole other system again. So, and our systems could never handle us anyway because we do too much crazy stuff. So I said, Katie, go find a stable platform somewhere else. Some freeware somewhere that you know it's free, and therefore it's always going to be there. And if you take the time and invest in figuring out the free system and building it yourself, yes, it's a hell of a lot of work. But guess what? It don't ever change. You're the master of that universe, and you can teach classes today, tomorrow, and 10 years from now if you know how to work your platform. So again, that's a lot to bite off for someone who's maybe not done any of this stuff. But the quicker you can get to doing stuff on your own, basically it's all about self-reliance. The better off you're going to be, and then you can focus more on doing your job, which is actually teaching people.
Right. Katie, I would have thought you learned a long time ago not to drink while he's talking.
No, I almost spit that out. That was good.
What did I say? I was just talking.
Something about them changing their underwear around.
Yeah, they only change their underwear every 3 or 4 years. I believe it. I don't know how it is up in Canada, but that's the way the bureaucrats are around here.
Katie, how long have you been doing this?
I've been, I was his TA the very first time he taught, teaching assistant funded. The very first time he taught 3,000 students was in 2008, and then I rolled into being his technical assistant / educational technologist in January of 2009. So that's 6 years now.
Wow.
And we created the position that's the other thing. I try to impart my words of wisdom to people who are going to attempt to change their courses or embrace technology or teach MOOCs or to go completely online. The final pearl of wisdom I'll give is make someone pay for it. So that's how I got her position, is because of class demand, and we said, hey, we're going to experiment and do some crazy stuff online and teach more people. And the university, of course, is like, great, we barely pay you anything anyway. Teach all you want. And I said, sure, I'll teach 3,000 people this year, but damn it, somebody's going to pony up some resources because you people are making money off this. And my salary don't change, and I'm only one human, and a Luddite at that. Or no, what do we say, techno-terror at that. So I pretty much demanded it. I said, you know, okay, I'll show you some results. We'll get into this. But as soon as we got one foot in the door and I showed them it could be done, I'm like, somebody needs to pony up. If you guys want this done and want it done right, there needs to be some resources allocated. So I would not ever want anyone watching this now or in the future to think that, oh, you're just supposed to do all this stuff by yourself because your university's clueless. They may be, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't pay for it. And you know, obviously most universities have some support and departments who want to help you, like this awesome department in Canada who helps teachers. You got to take advantage of those resources, but press even further. I mean, if you're doing a lot of stuff online and reaching more people, I think people got to pony up for it.
Right. I did share Susan Benz, who you met when you were visiting us, works in our office. She had written a blog post about the way you do different types of assessment. And I have shared that, but Connie just asked in the discussion forum, can you speak a bit to your ideas regarding assessments? Because you have talked about the flash quizzes, and I know that you give your students a lot of choice in terms of assessment. So could you just sort of do a quick overview on that?
Quick, that's
I know. I should learn by now.
Thanks a lot for nothing. People all suck. No, I can do it quick. Basically, we've adopted the flipped classroom approach, which everybody's heard about. So you do all the reading and video watching and quizzing and all this stuff on your own. So the flipped syllabus the flipped classroom combined with what I call the flipped syllabus, which I might have talked about when I was up there, which means that instead of having 5 assignments that everybody must do, we have 15 assignments that everybody can do. So we give a variety of different options to earn points towards your grade, and what we hope that does is afford the greatest flexibility for people's schedules, but also for their personal interest, and also for their personal knowledge level. So, you know, some people walk into a World Regions class and they're from the Middle East. They got it. They know what's going on. They don't need a whole lot more, and they want to do something a little bit more challenging. So we have assignments that are much more challenging for people of a higher knowledge level in certain areas. And, of course, some Americans walk in and they don't even know where Canada is on a map, except for all you folks, all right? And they need a little bit more time to develop, and so we give some assignments that are tailored for the intro. So it affords great flexibility for virtually all aspects from the student side. And we hope it helps people get engaged in the material by choosing their path and knowing what they want to do or trying something new. And most people don't like to write anymore, but some do. So we have a writing assignment. Almost everybody likes to watch films, so a lot of people do that. So we blend a lot of things in there and some people like Twitter, so we have a Twitter assignment you can earn points. Uh-oh, did we just lose somebody?
No, I'm here.
Sorry, our whole screen just went black for a second. Okay. So it's a flipped classroom approach, I guess, even though it's an online class, combined with a flipped syllabus to allow the students to earn as much points as they want in a variety of ways. So we may offer 2,000 to 3,000 points, but it only takes maybe 1,100 or 1,200 to get an A in the course.
Right. For people in our course right now, what I'll do is John did come up here in the fall and gave a couple of talks on our campus, but we have video of both of that, and so I'll post them in the course so that you can check those out. And he did talk about how he used technology, but also this concept of the flipped syllabus and how he does assessment.
And we've had great success with it. I guess I should write a paper, some crap about that too, but that's not my forte. But I mean, we get a lot of students who give a lot of positive feedback on that, and you know, we don't have that many people left behind, and I think it's because the system puts the impetus on the student. We're giving you all these opportunities. We only semi-plan it out in structure. We're like, here's where you should be doing every week to be on par for this course. Here are these video quizzes and book quizzes for this week, and then for week 2 and week 3, here's all the things you should do to get an A, and then you give all these other assignments you can do. So at the end of the semester, even halfway through, if people are failing, they know there's nowhere else to point a finger. I mean, since we implemented this system, I virtually have no complaints at the end of the semester. The complaints I get now, even in a class of 2,000 or 3,000 people, is we'll still get 10 or 15 people who show up, you know, the last day of class and say, BTW, I failed. And that's the conversation. There's nothing else to even say. You know, and then, and because I had all these issues going on, can I get an incomplete? And I would say, sure, I'll incomplete the whole world. All of you can come back next year and redo it again, but I don't have to deal with any grade quibbling. I don't do any of those arguments anymore. It doesn't even arise. And again, I think it's because the most powerful component of the system is it puts it on the students' shoulders to figure out what they're going to do. And what I tell them, it's kind of like life. It's kind of like a real job. You have to actually want to do it, figure out what you want to do, and plan and do it, and execute it. So I feel like we're kind of teaching life skills as much as we are teaching, you know, some geography knowledge.
The thing we implemented last semester is we now reward the students who get the highest points. Like we give
That's where I was going with this. Yeah, go ahead.
And we give them a gift card or some Plaid Ranger comics we have. So with their middle system, it has rankings for each student of where they rank in the course, so they know if they're in the top 20 or top 50 students. So it encourages them to keep working. You know that they can earn their A 3 weeks before the semester is ended, but they're like, it becomes a game of like watching their point total and like making sure they're still in like the top 20 people. They really want that little prize at the end. So it's kind of fun to see those people keep switching up.
So we have a gamifying element of it now too, and what Katie's expressing is that everybody at any second during the semester can see where they rank, and they can see their point total, so they know exactly where they are in terms of their grade, and they can see their rank in the class, which means think about the power of that knowledge in any size class, much less 1,000 or 2,000 people. That you know every second, you have no one to blame. You're like, oh, I already have an A, or I'm nowhere near an A, and okay, well maybe I'm failing because this class is really hard, so everybody else is failing too. And then you can look at your rank and be like, nope, it's just me failing. I mean, it's very powerful. It keeps people right on track, and because of the gamifying thing that Katie was suggesting or elaborating on, people will finish the course a month before the semester's done. They'll have an A, and they'll keep going. And they'll just keep going because they're like, well, I want to be number 1, or I want to be the top 20, or I just really like the material. I mean, here's how bizarre education has become in the 21st century. Every semester, people will ask me, and dozens, not just 1 or 2, dear Professor Boyer, so I already have an A in the course. Can I keep on learning stuff? Dramatic pause. Dramatic pause. Yes! You keep learning stuff. And it's a quite funny story, but I think it speaks to that we've become so fixated on grades. It's in higher ed that people are like, but I'm here for a grade, and so I got it, so I have to stop, right? And it's like, no, you're not here for a grade. You're here for the knowledge. Keep going. Press on. Press forward. To the promised land. Sorry, I'll quit now.
All right, your high energy is actually killing my battery, so I might fall out of here any second. So if I disappear, that's what happened.
We're at just about an hour anyway. So is there any final things?
I mean, I think that was a strong finish that I just had. So I
but you can't really
north
go
to
up
Alaska.
from there.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any other questions. I'm sorry. I apologize for this whole last hour of your lives.
No. I keep inviting you, so.
I don't know. Maybe next time that pops in your head, go review all the old tapes. Maybe that will help.
There you go.
I
Okay.
appreciate the apology.
Oh. Okay. On that note, this has been a great hangout. John, Katie, thank you so much for joining us for this one. I will post links to the other videos that we have of John speaking here. If anybody sends any questions in after watching this, if you post them to either the discussion forum or you tweet them to us using the course hashtag ILT_USask, we will get those questions to John, and hopefully he'll have a chance to answer them. But that's it. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's been wonderful. We are now at an hour.
All right, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Party on.
Yeah.
Bye.